Imagine something with me. Imagine carrying around a label for 12 years, not just something you believe about yourself, but something everyone else believes about you too. Unclean, unworthy, an outsider, someone people quietly move away from, someone who has spent years trying to fix what seems impossible to fix. Now imagine having the courage to walk into a crowd anyway, because today might be different. Today you believe Jesus can do what no one else could. I wonder how different would her story have been if she'd believed she wasn't good enough to go to him? Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Nourished Life for Christian Women. Today, we're talking about one of my favorite stories in the New Testament. It's the story of the woman with the issue of blood. You've probably heard it many times. One phrase that always stops me in my tracks from that story. Jesus says, "Daughter, be of good comfort. Thy faith hath made thee whole." Notice that he doesn't say his power made her whole or that he made her whole. Of course, his power is what healed her, but how did she access that power? Jesus points to her faith. That matters because faith isn't passive. Faith moves, it reaches, it acts. Faith says, I believe Christ's invitation. His acceptance includes me. And I wonder how many of us already believe that Jesus loves everyone. And on one level, we know he loves us, but we also feel like he must be so disappointed in our weakness. We try, but there's always so much more we know we could do, so much more together we could have it, so much more we could be. 12 years of being told the same story. For 12 years, this woman lived with more than a physical condition. According to Jewish law, continual bleeding meant continual ritual uncleanness. She couldn't participate in normal community life the way others could. Anyone she touched became ceremonially unclean. Anything she sat on became unclean. Imagine the isolation. Imagine the embarrassment. Imagine the shame that could have accumulated over 12 long years. No hugs from your friends because then they'd be unclean. Starbucks didn't want you to come and sit there and visit with your friends because then they were going to have to clean up everything that you touched. That sense of community that we all need, so fractured with this illness that she had. Mark tells us that she suffered many things from many physicians. She'd spent everything she had, but nothing helped. In fact, things became worse. Can you imagine how easy it would be to conclude, this is just who I am? I'll never be better. I'm the one who doesn't belong. I'm too broken. It's too much. I'm too much. Or perhaps I'm simply not enough. But she came anyway. This is what really gets me about this story. She still went. She pushed through the crowd, who, by the way, would have been unclean because she touched them. She risked criticism. She risked misunderstanding. She risked rejection because somewhere beneath 12 years of disappointment, hope was still alive. She believed that she could only touch his garment, everything would change. That really is remarkable faith. Not perfect confidence, not certainty, but faith. Sometimes we picture faith as never having doubts, but maybe simply faith is refusing to let doubt have the final word. One of the apostles was referred to as doubting, and he was an apostle. But one other thing I think about this story is what would have happened if she just felt like she wasn't enough and she stayed home? What if she believed that voice that said, you don't belong there? People like you don't deserve healing. Don't inconvenience anyone. Don't bother Jesus. Just stay where you are. Just give up. She never would have entered the crowd. She never would have reached out. She never would have experienced the miracle waiting just beyond her fear. How often do we do something similar? Not because Christ has withdrawn his love, but because shame convinces us not to approach him. But then came the word that changed everything. It's one of my favorite moments. Jesus stops, he looks for her, and she comes trembling, the scriptures say, admitting what she's done. And what's the very first word he says? Daughter. Not woman, not you, daughter. What a beautiful word. It's a relationship word. It's an identity word, a belonging word. Before he says anything about healing, he reminds her who she is. Imagine that after 12 years of being known primarily by your condition, not the unclean woman, not the sick woman, not the woman everyone avoids, daughter is what he called her, how he interacted with her. It's as though Jesus refuses to let her identity be determined by her circumstances. And he does the same for us. We may see ourselves through the lens of our struggles, our failures, our weight, our anxiety, our divorce, our mistakes, our addiction, our insecurity, our shame. Jesus begins somewhere different entirely. Daughter. And this is what I believe. Her healing changed her circumstances. It did not create her worth. It did not make her enough. She wasn't suddenly valuable because she'd been healed. She was valuable before she reached for his garment. She was valuable and enough while she was still suffering. She was valuable and enough when everyone else kept their distance. She was valuable and enough when she had no money left. She was valuable and enough before the miracle. The healing revealed something that had always been true. Her worth never left. Friends, your enoughness isn't something that you achieve. It's something you receive because your identity was never built on your performance. I'm saying that one again. Your identity was never built on your performance. It was always built on whose daughter you are. And there's nothing that we can do to change that, even if we try. Our identity is built on whose daughter we are. Yes, we make mistakes. We still have so much to learn, and our weaknesses will show up as we learn. That's not going to change. But that doesn't mean that we're not enough now. Not perfect, enough. So, what does living from enough look like? Here's a question to consider. How would your life change if you truly believed that your worth was already settled? Let's make it practical and look at some examples. First example, a friend seems distant. They're not returning our calls, not responding to our texts. Not enough would say, what did I do wrong? They must be upset with me. I need to fix this immediately. Living from enough says, I'll check in because I care about them. But I don't have to invent a backstory before I know the truth. We can just be in that enoughness and know that we don't know what they're experiencing. We don't know why they're not reaching out. We just know we love them. Second example, they're exhausted. Not enough says, oh, I should keep going. I haven't earned rest. Enough says, my body needs rest. Rest isn't a reward for finishing everything. It's part of caring for the life that God entrusted to me. Example 3. You make a mistake at work. Living from not enough says, oh, I've ruined everything. I have to prove that I'm competent. Living from enough says, I made a mistake. I'll take responsibility, learn from it, and move forward. Notice the action is still responsible. The identity is different. This one is close to me right now because recently at work, I go in a couple of days a week and help my son at his auto shop. I do the bookkeeping and the front desk stuff, order things. And he called me the other day and he said, "Is there a reason why you ordered these particular brake pads when there were $90 of shipping?" And I said, "Oh my goodness. Shipping could have been free if I'd ordered a different brand. When I was doing the ordering, I didn't notice the location. And I cost not just the business 90 unnecessary dollars because it would have been totally free, the shipping. I cost my son $90 completely unnecessarily because I wasn't paying close enough attention. Not enough would say, "Oh my gosh, I've ruined everything. Why I've been ordering parts for so long. I know I need to pay attention to that." And I could have gone into a whole thing of why this was such a stupid mistake. I could have been overly apologetic, overly despondent about doing that, and felt so terrible. But coming from enough, I did feel bad. I apologized. I said, "I am very sorry about this. I normally watch that very closely. So it slipped by me this time. I'll keep a closer eye." And I knew that it didn't affect my value. I also knew that it didn't please my employer, who also is my son. But I also know that he's responsible for his feelings. I know that in a business, employees make mistakes. And living from enough, I was able to apologize, to own my mistake, and to move on from there. So that's the invitation this week. Not to become enough, not to earn enough, not to prove that you're enough, but to begin living like the beloved daughter Jesus already calls you, and accept his grace-filled love in spite of any imperfections that you may see in yourself. The woman with the issue of blood didn't wait until everything was fixed before she came to Christ. She came exactly as she was. And before Jesus spoke about healing, he spoke about relationship. Daughter. Perhaps that's the word you need to hear today, too. Not because you've finally gotten everything together, not because you've solved every struggle, simply because that's who you are. And when we begin to believe that, when we begin to live from that, our choices begin to change. We stop striving to prove that what God has already declared. We stop hustling for our worth. We stop living from fear. Little by little, we begin living from enough. If this is something you struggle with, I believe I can help. And I invite you to set up a call with me. You'll find, or email me. You'll find my contact information in the episode description. Until then, remember, your worth is never up for debate. If today's episode or any other has resonated with you, I wanted you to know that I offer a free 30-minute call. If you'd like to schedule that, you can find the details for how to do that in the description for this episode. And in the meantime, don't forget to like and subscribe.